Netanyahu warns Israel is on the brink of a military coup. This is a story from the Jewish press. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issues a warning about a potential military coup, stating when elements in military try with threats to dictate policy to the government, this is unacceptable in any democracy, and if they succeed in dictating their threats, this is the end of a genuine democracy. Netanyahu accuses Prime Minister Ehud Barak of being the mastermind behind the coup attempt, funding and orchestrating protests. Barak's 2020 video interview is incited where he discussed methods, leaders, and goals of protest movements. Clashes between the government and demonstrators have been escalating with reservists and military personnel expressing reluctance to comply with the government's policies. There are concerns about possible use of force and disruptions going on here. So, Adam, what's going on here right now with Israel?
Yeah, well, this is a story that I've actually been following pretty closely because I was just in Israel, I don't know, 3 weeks ago. And amazing place, amazing country. Went and saw Jerusalem, Tel Aviv. I went to the Armenian quarter. I saw your people. I went to the Christian quarter. Tom, I saw your people. I went to the alien quarter. I saw your people. Went to the Jewish quarter. I went to the Muslim quarter. I went and experienced it all. But what I did see specifically in Tel Aviv were a lot of protests at the train stations. And I told my buddy who was driving around, I'm like, what's going on here? They're like, Netanyahu, protest, it's going on. He's trying to be a dictator and judicial reform. I'm like, what is going on here right now? So I explored this a little bit more. And I've been following the story. Here's what I've basically uncovered. So essentially there's the best way to understand what's happening in Israel is the closest analogy that I can make to Bibi Netanyahu is it'd be like, let's say Donald Trump was president for multi terms.
Yes.
Okay, because Bibi's been in politics, I want to say the prime minister, in and out of politics for 20 years. But basically he was accused of all sorts of stuff. He's on the Likud party, which is the right-wing conservative party. And he was basically accused of illegal actions and bribery and all this kind of stuff. But he came back. It's almost like as if Trump won again in 2024 after being removed in 2020, and he's back. And here's what I will tell you, just to kind of start the overarching theme here. Just like in America, there's liberals and conservatives and all sorts of things. It's all that and then some in Israel. So if you go to Jerusalem, it's very religious. It's very conservative. It's Orthodox Jews. If you go to Tel Aviv, bro, that is LGBT Pride Central. Like, it's to the point where I'm like, whoa, relax.
Yeah.
It was crazy. There was more Pride flags in Tel Aviv than there were Israeli flags. It was quite shocking to me. Now, they said, well, it was just Pride Week a couple weeks ago. They haven't removed all the flags. But it's very, very,
rainbow.
Let's just say, woke.
Yeah.
So what's happening right now is, since Bibi Netanyahu, nobody's denying the fact that they've had amazing economic growth in the last 20 years. Nobody. Israel, there's a book that I read years ago called Startup Nation. The technology sector, the military sector, the business sector, the entrepreneurial sector have grown exponentially in the last 20 years. Yeah, here's the book right here. Came out in 2011, exactly. So nobody's denying that. What they are basically saying is that Bibi is basically becoming more of an authoritarian regime, almost like Trump's back. He made it back in office, and now he's trying to take a stronghold on the country. And let's not forget, Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. Some countries are closed. Some say Algeria. Some say Lebanon-ish. That's the only full-on democracy. That's why their interests are aligned with the United States. There is a common interest and shared values. To be clear here, what Bibi Netanyahu is doing the following. He's basically doing a judicial overhaul. Essentially what his premise is like, look, the Supreme Court has been too activist and too liberal for many years. It's time for us to take it over. So what's happening is essentially probably the most serious domestic crisis possibly ever in the 75-year history of the United States. We all know that they have foreign issues with Iran, with the Palestinians, with Middle Eastern countries. But this is probably the biggest assault on democracy, the biggest issue that they've had in 75 years. Now, his coalition is basically saying, we're with you. The Supreme Court has way too many problems. The people on the left are basically saying this is overreach, and it's playing out. I mean, ultimately, it comes down to this. Democracy is ugly. People voted for Bibi Netanyahu. I actually think he's a strong leader, a capable leader. But I actually completely understand the people on the left that are basically saying, no, the Supreme Court should not be essentially shut down and quelled. And they're worried that he's becoming a strongman. And at the end of the day, I think what is it? Churchill said, democracy is the worst form of government, except for everything else. We're watching how the sausage gets made. It's not pretty. It's not fun to watch. But what are your alternatives? Saudi Arabia, Iran, Libya, Syria, Lebanon. I'll take what's going on in Israel over any other country in the Middle East.
Yeah. You know, when I think about Netanyahu, I see somebody. By the way, they reached out about wanting to do an interview. So we're right now talking to see what's going to happen. You know, we don't want to do a 1 hour one. I'd like to do a 2 hour one because I got a lot of questions to ask. So we may go actually fly out there to do the interview. If it doesn't happen, it was more of an hour one. If it does happen, know the fact that it's going to be a 2 hour interview.
In Israel, it's called chetzi chetzi. We meet in the middle, 50-50, an hour and a half.
I'm more 2 hours. So if they do it, we'll fly. For me to take time to go out there, and by the way, respect to him. He's got a tough job. He's got a lot of other responsibilities. But we would love to talk to him. We'd love to talk to a lot of different people. But, you know, when I see Netanyahu, I see someone that wants this job. Mm-hmm. Like I see someone that's been wanting this job for a very, very long time, and he was upset that he was ousted, okay? This is the part where I always ask myself, what is Tucker's vision? Does Tucker want to go follow a Netanyahu, Churchill type of a model as a journalist who has been... Imagine if you are someone that's been in journalism and debate for the last 30 years, 20 years, and all you do is read every single story.
Sure.
Who else knows the stories better than you for 20, 30 years, and you're charismatic, and you got a personality, and you're a true believer, and you're on debate stage? You've been debating for 20, 30 years. It's not like you don't have a way of doing it, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in Israel. But also at the same time, I think, you know, Tucker has to answer a question. Does he want to be the Netanyahu Churchill of U.S.? We'll see what happened there. I want to wrap up the podcast with 11:01. Did you want to say one final thing on this?
I'll just say one thing. You're talking about the U.S. and how there is conversations within the United States right now because how this is applicable to us as a major ally. Joe Biden has not invited Bibi Netanyahu to the White House. He did invite President Yitzhak Herzog, is his name, to meet with him. So there is this pulling of the strings here. You know, Trump has famously touted, I'm the most pro-Israel president ever. We know that. He said that a million times. So we'll see how this shakes out on the coming of the 2024 election. If it is Biden, if it is Trump, where, you know, a lot of Republicans are basically calling out Biden. There is that sort of delicate dance happening in Congress as we speak.
And to be fair, the day Biden won the first people to tweet, world leaders to tweet out congratulating Biden was Netanyahu.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh, I can't believe he did that because he wanted him. He didn't want Trump. Even some of the Trump loyalists were not happy about that. But Netanyahu's played his cards.
There's no doubt that Netanyahu and Trump have a closer relationship than Biden.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, presidents come and go, and the Israeli-U.S. alliance is very strong.
It's just funny the fact that Biden hasn't made an effort.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.